What's up? Welcome to the confluenceVC podcast. This podcast is meant to give you a personal glimpse into the next era of investors and operators. This week we had on Abhinaya Konduru, who works as an associate at M25 in Chicago. M25 is one of the most respected early stage funds in all of the Midwest, and within her role, Abhinaya spends her time sourcing new investments and working closely with portfolio companies of M25. In this talk, we discussed the Chicago tech and venture ecosystem, thesis and goals of M25 as a fund, challenges of working on a small team, and other projects that Abhinaya is working on outside of work.
Welcome everybody to the Confluence podcast. It's a beautiful day. It happens to be the beginning of a civil war in our no kidding. It happens to be election day. I hope everyone got out and voted. We respect whatever your political views are, and we just hope that you are happy and safe and feeling respected. With that, we want to thank you for listening and welcome our amazing guest, Abhinaya Konduru from M25. She's been a huge contributor to the Confluence community. She's beloved. Just over the last few weeks, she got a ton of new members to join. And with that, we love to just kick it off and let her tell a bit about herself and how she broke into the venture. Thanks again for coming.
Thank you both for having me. I'm really excited to be here and tell my story a little bit about my path into venture and what I'm up to these days. So to give you a background, I moved to America when I was in 8th grade. So coming to here with no background of English and having to learn at the age of 13 was a challenge. But as much as I was learning English, I was also a very strong numbers person. So given that my parents actually gave access to their trading portfolio, so I got into trading stocks and options at an early age. This was back in 2008, 2009 times. As you can imagine, the financial markets at that time were crazy, but I wanted to build some models around it so that my trading portfolio would trade even if I'm in school. So I really dived into algorithms and building some models for trading. But when it came a chance to select a school to go to, I wanted to learn finance and a little bit more on computer science. So I ended up double majoring in finance and mathematical computer science, wanting to be a trader, wanting to trade a larger portfolio, but ultimately decided that's not the route that I wanted to go to, just given my personality of both numbers and the creative person. So I started diving into other finance fields, worked at a couple of startups here locally in Chicago and a couple of bank consulting firm. I joke about this now, but I think I really did all this to figure out what I don't want to do more than what I actually wanted to do. Junior year came to an end and I had a couple of offers for traditional finance roles. I knew I wasn't going to like them. I knew I wasn't going to be happy about it. So I ended up declining the offers and started making YouTube videos. So I was following entrepreneurs and making like a vlog / documentary style video about an entrepreneur. It was a lot for selfish reasons of, hey, instead of just asking for a cup of coffee, I actually wanted to see what they did every day. So I did about 10 videos across all entrepreneurs. This was like a chicken and egg problem too. I didn't have any experience in making videos and the entrepreneurs didn't know who I was. So I started out with just a friend of mine and then worked my way up towards making videos. But one commonality that I noticed across all the stories that I was telling was access to capital and need of capital. And that's when I actually learned about venture capital and how it is helpful and also how it drives the economy and make a lot of people happy. So I started digging into VC here in Chicago and started talking with a couple of local VCs in wanting to do a similar video series where I would just follow an investor for a day and kind of tell their story and learn a little bit more. So when I was in the process of trying to recruit some investors, I stumbled upon M25 and interviewed at the firm. Happened to be a fit, and it leads to a right time, right place with the right skill set. So ended up going through the interview process and joined the team at M25 right after graduating undergrad in Chicago. So that's kind of how I broke into venture. Just happened to be at the right place with the right skill set.
Nice. Love the fact that you're in Chicago. I'm actually in Chicago now. and it's a beautiful city. I did the same kind of thing. I was going from California, where I had worked at a few different firms, and I really wanted to come home, which my mom's from Chicago, my dad, little brother, everything. And I went to like Light Bank, talked to Mark Ochler over at Math, 1871, Hyde Park Ventures, Chicago Ventures, Jump. I didn't get to meet M25. So you ended up in an amazing shop, and I hear so much great things about them frequently. And I've also been told that I should meet you more. So
Thank you.
You're killing it and really representing the city. And we should definitely kick it, assuming things don't get too crazy over the next week here. Let's see. Clay, you want to kick us off with the next question?
Yeah, sure. So just talk about your path into M25. Could you talk a little bit more about the thesis at M25 and then what specifically your role is within the fund?
Yeah, M25 specifically focuses on investing in pre-seed and seed stage tech or tech-enabled companies solely based in Midwest. So we only invest in companies that are headquartered in Midwest and have that geographic restriction. We have a unique portfolio. We focus on power law focused disciplined investor strategy. So we have about 100 plus companies in our portfolio that we've invested to date. So a bit of history on the fund. The first one was just $1 million fund that Victor Goodwine, managing partner, raised at the age of 24 in late 2015. So he started making investments out of the $1 million fund and then went on to raise a $11 million fund with Mike Assam, who's the other partner here. And then I joined the fund a year into it. So this was back in May 2017. When I first joined the team, we were at 44 investments, and now we're at 103 or 102 investments that we've done. So I worked on the last 60 investments or so that we've done here at M25. As far as my role, it's evolved over the past 3.5 years. When I first started, I focused a lot on due diligence of the companies that we were looking at. Even though we were investing in about 1 or 2 companies a month, we would do full due diligence on them. And this gave me access to not only learning about 1 or 2 industries, but multiple industries across the Midwest region. If you want to talk about a particular industry, I probably have something to say about it, just given the high pace of investments that we have done here at M25.
So what size checks you all typically writing?
In our Fund 3 right now, we'll do anywhere from 250 to 500K checks, but previously in Fund 2, we did 100K checks into every single company. And we've invested in 65 companies in that fund.
Gotcha. So one thing that I wanted to hit on with you, given the Midwestern ties, is just talk a little bit about the Chicago ecosystem, right? The Chicago ecosystem is pretty tight-knit, right? Like there aren't that many funds. The killer entrepreneurs know each other really well. Everyone's tied in. Everyone will go to Gene and Georgetti's and do like these VC dinners and whatnot. Can you talk a little bit about what it's been like for you making the move into this ecosystem?
Yeah, no, Chicago is a great ecosystem here. I will say that everybody's really friendly. Everybody's willing to share deals. Everybody is willing to work together to make the best syndicate possible for the founder to have best cap table as possible. So as far as the Chicago ecosystem goes, it's a tight-knit community and everybody's welcome in a sense. Though we are starting to see a little bit of competition these days, given the increase in valuations and just access to capital with the remote work. A lot of coastal investors are now coming and investing pre-seed and seed stage here in Midwest, which is good. And it's really good for the ecosystem that we're investing in. And keep in mind that it's just not Chicago, but it's the whole Midwest that's doing really well. And that's what M25 represents.
What are cities that you all consider to be part of the Midwest? I don't know if many people have really thought about Ohio, Detroit, et cetera. Like, what are all the surrounding areas?
When we say Midwest, we include 11 states in it. The northwest side, we got the Dakotas, and then we come all the way down to Nebraska, Kansas, and then on the east side, we'll go half of Pennsylvania, so we'll include Pittsburgh, and then all the way down to Kentucky. So you got Michigan in the middle, Wisconsin, Ohio, Indiana, and all these states.
Got it. Clay?
Yeah, so talked on it a little bit earlier, but you said your team is pretty tight-knit and small. What have been the biggest challenges of working on a smaller team, especially with all the volume that you guys deal with?
Yeah, at the end of the day, given a small team, there are things that you just have to get done. I would say that has been the biggest challenge in two ways. One, this leads to working on things that you're really good at, but you don't necessarily want to focus your time just doing those things. And the second one, which is leading, not having time to improve the right skills. Ultimately, it comes down to balance, and I think the team at M25 does a good job of distributing the work and not just having to get things done, but how do we make it as fast as possible, and how do we optimize for the time that we have given the fast investment pace.
How do you all control for a pipeline here? Like doing 2 deals a month on such a lean team and having the visibility to do, like the amount of deals you have to see to do 1 deal.
Yeah, we see about 200 deals a month. So just looking at that high volume, we have a very good investment process that everybody on the team and entrepreneurs that we're talking to know about it. So it's an intro call of 30 minutes, just getting to know, see if it's a good fit for M25 and if it's a good company for us to keep having more conversation. Then we'll go into a first senior team meeting. And then after that, we'll do a scorecard. So the scorecard, we have 5 variables that we're looking at across all companies and going by them. So we don't use it as like a final decision maker, but it definitely guides us in moving forward to the next step, which would be a second senior team meeting. And then we'll move into due diligence. Our due diligence is more of confirmatory than making a new decision. When we move into due diligence, 90% of the time, we're making an investment into that company. So we have a strict process and guidance on how do we help companies go through the pipeline. Our goal is to get to the due diligence stage within 2 to 3 weeks. So we're really fast in making the decision and moving forward into the due diligence stage.
That is great. Not many funds are great at efficiency. So thank you all for putting a good foot forward for VCs, because most of us can't do it. So
it helps the entrepreneur and it helps us so that everybody's on the same page and the same expectations.
Yeah, kill things quickly, be helpful when you can after you do. That one thing for you in particular that made us interested in having you on here outside of just being so helpful to the Confluence community was the fact that you're working on a lot of interesting things outside of M25 as well. Would you like to speak on that, Clay? Also feel free to add here as well.
Yeah, so given the geographic restrictions, sometimes I feel like I'm just so siloed into my own world of just the Midwest, but I want to make sure that I'm hanging out with a lot of awesome people that are outside of Midwest and see if they were to ever come to Midwest to invest in. So a couple of projects or things I'm working on the side is one, Ask VCs. So similar to Ask Reddit, but Ask VCs. So it's a twice a week email with just questions and answers that you can answer to that question to me, and then I'll share those answers with the community. And if you want to stay anonymous, you have the option to do it. So it's basically a community of VCs to share, learn, and grow together. It's also a play a little bit on, hey, let's learn from peers instead of looking for that golden mentor who can guide you along the path of venture. I think this is something that I've definitely struggled with when I first joined the team here, where given the Midwest focus, it was really hard to find good mentors. But ultimately, I did end up finding it, but also I was learning a lot from peers. So just having a community to go to has been a focus of mine, and I've been trying to build that for the past couple months. So if anybody's interested in joining and just being part of the community, just reach out to me. And the other thing that I'm working on is the Mango Group. So Trey Calver and I have been working on this idea for a while, but ultimately came together in the past month. It's a syndicate to invest together in companies that a lot of us are seeing. Sometimes when we're seeing companies, it might not be a good fit for our fund, but it could be a personal interest that you want to invest in. So it's a group to come together and syndicate to invest about 1 to 5K checks and invest into awesome companies that we're seeing. So those are the 2 things I'm working on outside of here at M25.
That is dope. That is very dope. I know I would personally love to be active on Ask VC here and participate in whatever you got going on. You got a great brain and some cool initiatives.
Yeah, Ty, could you add my new email to that? I think I might have gotten deleted because my last email got bounced. But
got it.
Yeah, I would love to stay on it.
Yeah, I'll update.
Well, cool. With that, I think we can just dive into the quick questions. So do this at the end. It's supposed to be just quick questions answered in 2 sentences or less. Tyler, if you're cool with it, we can just rotate through these. I'll go the first one.
Okay, you run through these.
Okay, all good. So first question we have is, what is a recommendation you hear regularly that you think is bad advice?
I've been thinking about this question. The one that I wholly disagree with is you have to build a brand for yourself. I know I might be contradicting myself when I say that, but it's necessary to build a brand, but it shouldn't be forced. And forcing a brand is actually worse. It's worse. It takes years to build it, and it should really reflect who you are in real life. If someone were to come up to you and meet in person and you've only known them online up until that point, would they recognize who you are? Or is your personality so drastically different that they're not able to recognize it? So when people say you have to build a brand yourself, be mindful of what it is that you're actually building, and keep in mind that forcing it is worse.
Got it. I think that's good advice.
I think that's fire.
Yeah. It's counterintuitive to some of the answers we've had from others, but I think it's good to get that difference in opinion. Next question we have is, in the last year, what new belief, behavior, or habit has most improved your life?
One thing that I've been doing for the past quarter or so is blocking off my mornings on my calendar for some deep work. I think we get into a routine of having calls whenever throughout the day. It actually disrupts a ton with the work that you have to get done. As VCs, we're hopping on calls now more often than ever before. So having some blocked off time to just work on things, whether that's getting tasks done or doing some creative aspects of your role, I think is really important. And that's been a new habit that I've been forming that I really enjoy, and seeing a lot of improvement in not just my work, but also mental health, anxiety, and not getting tasks done.
Yeah, I've started to do the same and just not have any meetings on Friday unless I have to, and it has been great. Would highly recommend it. Don't know if it's possible for everybody, but taking a day off for meetings has been awesome.
I actually use this thing called reclaimai. It's like an AI assistant that locks into your calendar and like blocks off time for whatever you want and prioritizes things for you. That combined with using set Calendlies for like different people and different, I use one for entrepreneurs, one for investors, and then like different time allocations for each one. Getting a system for yourself is so pivotal.
100%. Exactly. All right, next question we have is, aside from having to say no all the time, what's the worst part about venture?
For me, I think not being able to work with founders that you really want to work with because of your fund thesis is one, and missing a deal. What I mean by missing a deal is not being able to see the deal before the investment happens. Our goal at M25 is to see every single deal in Midwest, and when we don't get to see a deal and we see an announcement for it, that's the worst part of venture, for me at least.
Makes sense. Next question we have is, what is your best piece of advice or feedback for junior VCs or those aspiring to break into venture?
There's no one way to get into venture. I think everybody has a unique path into it. So one advice is do the job before you get it. Pick an area of venture to dive into it. I really see venture in 4 different sections: sourcing, due diligence, post-investment, and LPs. So if you want to focus on sourcing, pick a sector, stage, and create market maps or do a deep dives into it. If you want to do due diligence, really understand an industry by doing a deep dive and talking about similarities, the differences, and if you can pull in any analogies that can showcase that you're about the industry. And if it's a post-investment that you want to focus on, which is help founders with some projects, helping them raise their next round of capital or bringing some context that could be interesting for that founder. And if it's LPs, which is raising capital for funds, build relationships with high net worth individuals who might have family offices or they're able to invest into funds. Pick one of these 4 areas and dive into them.
100%. That all makes sense. It's good advice. So last question we have here, I would do this at the end. We want to give credit where credit is due. So do you have any mentors, could be one, could be as many as you'd like to name, that you'd want to give credit to?
I have too many. I wouldn't be here without a lot of people helping me along the way. But I will shout out a couple people who are really pivotal into where I'm at right now. In college, Tony Brooks, Dale Senthal, and John Miller were really critical in helping me find internships, your name brands that are on your resume that really help you get your next internship. Those were really critical. And once in VC, Samara Hernandez, who just started her new fund called Chingo No Ventures. She was my first VC person who really believed in me and took a shot and still spends a lot of time every quarter just talking about things and helping me along the way. And in addition to that, I want to give a huge shout out to my team first. Without them, I wouldn't have the same knowledge into venture as somebody else. And want to take this time to thank them.
So shout out them. Our one thing that we've been trying to do is, again, always say that this is for the venture community, by the venture community. And like, we only build tools and add people to the podcast and whatever else we decide to do here based on what people here want. So who would you want to be part of the Confluence community if they're not? And then equally important, be on this podcast.
I think Jackie Des Moines, or I'm mispronouncing her name, Jackie from Hyde Park Venture Partners. I think she has a really unique angle into how she's approaching venture that I would love to hear her thoughts on.
Sounds good.
I think
All
she
right.
just joined yesterday.
Oh, perfect.
So yeah, that was great timing.
Yeah, maybe we can make that happen soon.
Yeah.
I think we've pretty much hit the nail on the head here. We've really enjoyed our time with you. You're super dope. Maybe I'll make up all the favors you've done for Confluence by doing a dinner in Chicago at some point for a thank you. And yeah, let us know if we can ever be helpful to you. Love, it's infinite love on our end.
Yeah, thank you for having me. All the resources and guidance that you're putting together is amazing. This is something that I wish I had access to when I first joined. So you're creating a lot of dreams come true for the next generation of investors who are joining the VC space.
Thank you.
That's the goal. But cool, Abhinaya, again, thank you so much for coming on. And we'll repackage this, clean it up, using the editing software that you recommended.
Awesome.
Cool.
Thanks, everyone. I enjoyed being here.
Have a good one.
Take care.
We're both super appreciative to Abhinaya for coming on this week, and we hope that each of you are able to pick up something valuable from it. For next steps, if you're an investor and have not already signed up to join, we encourage you to check out our website at www.confluence.vc to submit your info to become a member. If you have any feedback for us, please feel free to reach out directly either to Tyler at gpv.com or myself at clay@bunkercapital.com. Hope to hear from you all soon.